Today's episode of Chat and Chew is sponsored by Big, the brand agency. Please make sure you follow us on Facebook, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course, hit the bell to activate notifications that will remind you when we're on. Please be sure to leave us a comment to let us know how we're doing. We'd love to hear from you.
Welcome again to another episode of Chat and Chew, our weekly broadcast. I invite you to come and be a part of our discussion today. If you are watching us from Facebook, please continue to watch us. Our YouTube, don't hesitate to go to that little button on the corner and subscribe for us so you get indication when we're going to be on. Also on Instagram as well. I'm very excited today about our audience. You're going to meet him in a second, but we've been working together to some degree with art for a couple of years, and we can get into some of the things that we've done together. But I want to welcome our audience again for the next 30, 35, 40 minutes. Please join us as we talk about art and tie that into fathers and everybody. So welcome to our studios today is Mr. Eric MCray. Thank you for coming and being with us today.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the offer and appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah. So I'm going to let you tell you a little bit about your story, but we attempted to do this back
in the fall.
Back in October.
Yeah.
Our studios, there was a quote, a guy used to, I forgot his name, and it'll come to me. But he said, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can do it well, right? So we've been doing this podcast, and we were doing it very poorly because
be not ashamed of humble beginnings.
I know, right?
There you go.
We had wires hanging from on the floor and everything. It was just jacked up, and we did it actually for about a year, and the last time you came. We was in the process trying to do a podcast, and it got so bad.
I thought it was a great experience.
It got so bad, and we were going to try to piece it together, make it work, and it didn't work.
What is it? It made it to the cutting room floor kind of thing?
Yeah. It just got. Anyway, my team was working on it, and Tammy was working, really trying to put it together, so we just kind of shut the whole thing down for a couple months.
Right.
We got a little grant, so now you come and you see we're not perfectly white yet, but. We're getting there, and it's a lot better than it was before. And all those little pitfalls that we had before, hopefully we won't have that this time.
All right.
So welcome again. We're gonna do this again.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, tell us who you are, your family, and you're married, and all that good stuff.
My name's Eric MCray. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I grew up in D.C., Northwest D.C.
Okay.
Went to college at Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore, where I received my Bachelor of Fine Art. I received a scholarship to help finance that education, a very pricey school, to say the least. And otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to go there. It was just,
okay. But the fact you got a scholarship.
Oh, yeah. And when I was in high school, I had some really good teachers in public school. And I kind of stood out from doing art when I was since the first grade. All children create art. I just never stopped, and had some great teachers to nurture me. Specifically, I remember Miss Rich. She was really awesome, and helped me get a strong portfolio together. So when I went to a college fair for art schools, I'm there with a 3-piece suit on.
Right.
At a college fair with a power tie on, so I obviously stood out. And the lady from the school saw my portfolio, and she said, this is really strong work you're already doing, college freshman level work, and asked about me attending a school. I said, I don't have the finances. My mother basically said, you want to go to college by faith, and that's just, right. I wasn't a man of faith then, but my mother's faith actually brought me over that line. So doors opened, I went off to college, finished there, then I moved from Baltimore back to D.C., then North Carolina. Married my sweetheart. She was attending North Carolina Central University.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we were married 36 years.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Brother.
Wow.
Yeah, 36 years, right? And I always wonder how people did that. And I'm still scratching my head. How does that happen, But it's been a blessing. We have 2 children, and they're almost grown. And my daughter's attending college.
Cool.
And it's been a wonderful experience. I've been a full-time artist I've been a full-time artist now for like 25 years. But I've been doing arts my whole life.
Wow.
So it's nothing, the arts is something that's very much a regular part of who I am.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us something about you, to the audience, that may surprise us about you.
Surprise you.
What's your hobby, the thing that you love to do?
I like to garden.
Like to garden, okay.
My mother was really into plants and gardening, and I picked that up from her. I'm very entrepreneurial. My father was owned a cab company, and my grandfather was a farmer here in North Carolina. So very entrepreneurial,
right?
And that's part of the reason I have had success as an artist. I understand art is a business as well.
Right.
But when I kind of let my hair down and kind of do nothing, I'm messing with some plants. Or something.
Oh, okay.
I like to see things nurture and grow.
Right. Cool. Art has been a part of. This is African American. This is a Black History Month, and art has been a part of our history from a long time. Give us a little bit of history of art
and Black culture.
Yeah.
I studied African American art when I was in college, and the difference between Western perception of art versus you would call a more traditional African perception was that art was utilitarian. It wasn't just like, I made this thing and I hung it on the wall or I put it on a pedestal. You had traditional ceremonial mask and all kinds of items that were carved, immaculately and created for use. So the difference was that when in the tribal African culture, the artist was also the shaman.
Really?
Yeah, he had his dual thing. He was a spiritual man as well as a creative man.
Okay.
And so when I kind of got that revelation of that the spirit as well as the natural world were there in the arts, and you see even in a more secularized world, heard somebody said that it was this quote. They were talking about the New York art scene, and they said that the museums were the new churches, and the artists are now the saints.
Wow.
In a secularized world. So people tend to want to connect some kind of spiritual or emotional connection to creativity.
Yeah.
And so art is a part of all cultures and all people. But for the Black experience, so as we were implanted in America, that's a nice way to put it.
Right. Right.
But through our heritage, we always created. And so when Black artists in the 1800s were able then to learn Western painting, and they were painting these great works and paintings and landscapes and portraits. People didn't even know they were Black. And then until you had an artist named Henry Oswald Tanner, he was a Black artist, tremendously great painter. And so through it, and people knew he was Black, and of course he faced certain discrimination and so forth. So when you get into the 20th century, and then you had the Harlem Renaissance, which is this explosion of creativity. You had Duke Ellington, and you had Count Basie, and all these people creating art, and all these geniuses, Langston Hughes, all these people writing him. And then you had artists who were producing art during the Harlem Renaissance, and it was just two different veins of creativity. Some artists were like, we have to push back against all the images of the mammies and the pickaninnies and all this stuff. Right. And all these artists were painting these works that were almost like Black Norman Rockwell pictures.
Wow.
Where they showed this idealistic view of us that humanized us.
Right.
And then there was other Black artists who were then making non-objective abstract art that kind of dealt with the psychological, the spiritual, the intellectual aspect. But all of it ultimately funneled down to where we are. So you have this wide range of creative people, Black people who are making art. And so then the question becomes, what is Black art? Does it have to have a picture of a Black person? Or does it have to just be made by a Black person? So all these questions come up, and I don't have the answer for all that.
How did art help us endure slavery? Was there a connection there?
I think anything during that period, everything was destroyed or limited to being able to create. But when we obtain our freedom, then you start seeing folk artists, untrained artists, people just in a natural spirit were more free to create. And there's some rare things that have been found that were artifacts made by slaves that were kind of hidden away, because anything that showed a sense of humanity or their own sense of culture was destroyed or punished for. But when we obtained our freedom, and then during the Reconstruction, and then into the 20th century, and we became more affluent,
right?
Because you had whole communities of successful blacks and businesses and doctors and lawyers.
Right.
So in that, the arts and creativity just exploded. Wow. Jazz music.
Yeah.
I mean, just so much happened.
Yeah.
So it's been our journey.
Yeah. You know, as you know, we work with a lot of men, a lot of fathers, and it's art. It's very, very therapeutic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Tell us about that. I mean, I was gonna make another point, but tell us how therapeutic is art.
Well, I mean, I teach. I do workshops, and I've done some with you,
right,
and with your group. And I think everybody wants to be able to express themselves. They want to be heard. They want to be seen, and everybody has their story.
Right.
And thus, when you give somebody a pen and paper, or just remember the old days when you sit on the phone, and you know when a phone was connected to the wall,
right, and
somebody sits there and you're just doodling,
right,
and so basically it's a fancy way of, the intellectuals would call it psychic automatism. Basically, a free flow of images and thoughts and little things. You're doing a star, and you draw a cat, whatever. It's a free flow of your thoughts being put on the paper. Right. So some people exercise that through poetry, through singing, whatever, and some do it through the visual arts.
Yeah.
So I would encourage anybody and everybody to create.
Yeah. So the point was, we work with a lot of fathers, and one of my mentors, Miss Betty Murchison, wanted to
she
bring.
Was a teacher local.
Yeah, she wanted to bring some art to our fathers. Yeah, these are guys that are struggling with substance abuse and all kind of disadvantages, and so when she proposed to start a art class, I kind of pushed back on it. I was like, these guys are interested in art. I mean, come on, Miss Betty, I know you're good and all that, but they ain't really. But because Miss Betty, who she is, I said, I'm going to try it.
Right.
So we set up some time on Saturday morning, and we asked guys who wanted to come on Saturday morning and just draw. It blew me out the water. Every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, we had 10, 15 guys come to our office to paint.
Because you gave them permission.
Yes, and they painted, and I mean, we had a good time. They painted so many pictures that we auctioned some of them off.
Right.
And the guys got to take that money. We didn't get none of that money.
Right.
We gave all that money to them. And we actually we got some pictures hanging on our wall that those guys painted during that time. It was just before COVID.
Right.
We kind of shut it down because of COVID. But it just it blew me. I mean, you got these guys who, burly guys, and now they're coming here, these badass guys.
Yeah,
these guys are just,
because usually art's not necessarily always connected with machismo.
Yes.
And like during the 1940s, it was all these artists who were abstract, like Jackson Pollock. You're a Jackson. These guys were drinking, carousing, brawling guys, and they made art.
Yes.
And they wanted to make art macho.
Yes.
And so that's one of those stigmas that come with the arts. And art is for everybody.
Yeah. And I remember, and we have a collage on the wall that I think Tammy's going to show eventually. But you called me, I don't know, a few years ago and said, hey, you got a grant to
that was some years ago.
To create a collage of fathers.
We did a big mural.
Fathers and their kids. And we got the mural together and we put it together. And that Saturday morning, we had some of our guys.
Had a big turnout. It was fathers and sons
and the kids,
on the pieces together.
And they worked on that painting. And I love it so much. It's been hanging on our wall ever since you did it.
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine who created a big frame for it, and it's hanging on.
Well, I won't say I did. I designed it. But
you gave us the opportunity to do that.
And I think as a team effort, we worked on a really stunning piece, and it has a lot. It offers a lot.
Yes.
And my assistant came along; she helped me as well, and we cleaned it up and got it ready for you. But I think it was a great opportunity for those men. Once again, I mean.
And your point was the reason why you got that grant, I believe, you wanted to expose African people of color to art that sometimes we're not exposed to. Talk about that.
Well, understanding of art and appreciation of art a lot of time is cultural and socioeconomic. You know, I had an art studio at Art Space for 21 years, and I'd have certain groups of people bring their kids to my studio at Christmas to pick out art. And they say, "Oh, they got plenty of video games. I want them to start collecting art." And these are young kids.
Right.
They're elementary school age, and they've already been nurtured and encouraged to appreciate art and artists.
Right.
So they're like, "This is Mr. McRae." You know, they treated me like I was somebody significant in their family. And so back to the old thing of the shaman. All of a sudden, I held this spiritual, emotional position in their family. And now I just had a lady recently commission me to paint something that she gave for her daughter, who used to work with me, to her granddaughter. So back to culture and exposure and so forth. And in the Black community, I think there is a great appreciation for art. But there's always that the concern about survival or prosperity and things. So being like, people think I'm really rich or I'm really poor.
Right. If you,
I'm never, the guy in the middle.
Right.
It's like I'm a millionaire or I'm a guy.
Yeah, you're a struggling artist.
I can barely make ends meet.
Are you this?
Or I'm driving a Ferrari. You know. And neither one is really. I mean, there are artists on both extremes, but it's really the ones who are successful fall somewhere in the middle.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that stigma, that concern about can you make a living? But for me, anybody I tell to create art or encourage to create art, it's not about money. It wasn't about money for me. My mother told me, and I mentioned my mother often. My father died when I was really young, so it's not that he choose to be there. Right. He passed on. Right. So my mother raised me with a good part of my life. But she said anybody who's good at anything can make a living at it.
Right.
And I came from
your gifts and talent
will make room for you, right? So I came from a family of creative people. Thus, it was expected me to do something with it. Right. The talents. Back to Jesus and give everybody a certain amount of talents. Right. God gives you talents. So the thing was that I tell people to make the art for you. Right. Bunch of guys go play golf. Bunch of people get together, play cards. Bunch of folks go bowling. You sew a dress, whatever. It's for you. Right. You're having a good time. You're not sitting there, can I make a living one day playing golf? And of course you don't think like that. Right. You're just a bunch of guys having fun. Right. So same way to encourage people to make art for themselves. And if you happen to somebody comes along and say, well, how much is that? Like you sold all those pieces, auctioned them off. People saw value in it. Right. That wasn't out of pity. Right. Because people don't really care that much. They're like, and they bought it because they liked it. So they invested in somebody else's creativity. Yeah.
We had a room full of people that day.
Yeah.
And we had these paintings out on the table, and people were just like,
grabbing them up.
Yeah. They didn't take long. What really inspired you to get into the art?
Wow. I don't think anything inspired me as much as it was natural to me. Okay. Everybody has a certain gift or skill set. Right. Like I had some friends who were great in athletics or somebody who could just sing easily, For me, creating images and so forth, when I was in the first grade, a teacher asked a bunch of kids, do you, who wants help with the bulletin board? I was real enthusiastic. And whatever I created was about Rumpelstiltskin. And they rant and rave about it. I had this epiphany that my art or my creativity had a value beyond my own personal joy. And that path started for me. But I felt I was called to be an artist. I think that's what I was meant to be. Right. Now I can do other things. Yes. I worked in other professions. Right. But at the core of it, I was an artist. Right. I'm a creative being. And in some fashion, making something is what I do. And I can't stop myself from doing it. It just happens.
What feeling do you get when a person come in and buy the artwork that you made from scratch? Your imagination, you saw it, you put it on a piece of paper, you painted it, and somebody come in and say, I want to give you $300 for it.
I just had a lady message me before we started to buy a painting for $2,000. Wow. Just now. So I'm happy. But, it's I think it's a mixture of feelings. It depends on what the painting is, what am I doing, who am I doing it for, what's my emotional connection to the piece. It varies. It runs the gambit because I remember one of the first pieces I sold for a pretty decent price, which I thought was a lot. It was only $50 back then. I felt a little guilty.
Why?
I don't know. I think you're conditioned somewhere to feel guilty.
Right.
Like you shouldn't be
Making money.
Yeah, I mean, you have to reprogram yourself to be successful as an artist. But then I've sold paintings for thousands and thousands of dollars and thought nothing of it.
Wow.
Like I had this exhibition and I sold, lots of work, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of work. I talked to all these people, really intense night. That night I left the gallery. I drove to Harris Teeter. Went to Harris Teeter, got me some grocery store sushi, a Snapple, sat in my car and looked at the street lights, that glare, and depressurized.
Wow.
I told my son that story, and my son said, "You made all that monty, and that's all you did with it?" That's why I had responsibilities and stuff. He said, "You got to learn how to take care of yourself a little bit better." He'd had a different game plan,
A celebration wouldn't have been with a store-bought sushi.
Yeah, it was just that time alone, and that's that kind of reflection. But there's a lot of gratitude.
Right.
Fundamentally, I think in every situation is a strong amount of gratitude, because I don't take my blessings for granted. I don't take my God's provision for granted. I'm thankful I can do what I love. I'm thankful that people appreciate what I do and they're willing to trade their sweat equity for my sweat equity. And so I think at the core of it is always gratitude.
So you took your natural gift.
Yes, sir.
And you kind of grew it. You made it. How did you do that? What training did you get?
Public school. I had an opportunity to possibly go to Duke Ellington School of the Arts. I'll be honest, I was a little too lazy to take the bus all the way across D.C. every day to go to school where I could walk to the local high school. And because I stood out in that environment, I got even more attention. And the teachers who really were hungry for good students really just glommed onto me and gave me a lot of one-on-one attention. So I was spoiled in that sense. Right. And then I had a family that encouraged me. My community didn't encourage me. My neighbors didn't encourage me. I took a lot of slings and arrows from my peers and people in the community. A lot of negative connotations, all kind of things. You never do anything, which you never amount to anything. Right. But my brother, my mother were extremely encouraging, and my teachers. Right. And that gave me the impetus, the faith, the courage to keep pressing on. And as things opened up and more opportunities, then the validation started to appear. And eventually the naysayers and the critics and so forth, like, I always knew you could do it.
Right.
Thanks, I appreciate it,
Right. Growing up, we watched JJ.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, on Good Times.
And Good Times. And he had all these Afrocentric pictures that he would paint.
Right.
And that was that was my ideal of a good artist.
Right.
So in the world we're living in now, with AI involved, what do you think, and how that is affecting the artwork that you do or other artists do, like the JJ artists?
Right.
How do AI now come in and, because somebody sent me a picture and I knew it was generated through AI, and I looked at it, I was like, I like this, but it don't look authentic. I'm not I'm not knocking AI at all.
Right.
But what do you see AI, and how is that gonna
change things? Art's always been involved, and technology's always been part of art. Always going back to the Renaissance, had this thing called a camera obscura, where you look through it, altered picture, altered everything, so you almost make it like a photograph. Even before photography, then photography came along, and computers came along, and now you got AI. So creative people find it, and that's the internet. And I tell people, young people, you have more opportunities than ever now with computers.
Right.
My daughter studied being an industrial engineer. She wants to be able to make a better looking microphone or whatever. So the thing is that now with the internet, you can do print, you can do web-based technologies, internet-based technologies, or art creativity, and then you have print media, which is less and less. Everything you see in your watch or clothing, how this looks, everything is a creative impact. All the icons on your smartphone, we're going back to hieroglyphics.
Wow.
If you think about it, just like you're not even reading words anymore, you're reading hieroglyphics. That means book, that means food, that means this, that, and other thing.
Right.
So when AI comes along, depending on where you're positioned, is how you capitalize off of it or you work around it. I produce a lot of fine art. So the people who are interested in me don't want something that is an amalgam of copywritten images assembled
Come
together by a computer.
Right.
But if somebody wants a quick, fast picture that they can make up or some content, they may use AI.
So how would AI kind of affect copyrights if it's pulling images together and
There's a lot of copyright infringement because if you're creating imagery, an AI image from your own imagery, it's acceptable. If I'm creating AI imagery from a plethora of resources, now I'm violating a multitude of copyrights of various artists, or even your personage. Your face could end up in something, and now you have a right to your face.
Right.
I can't just take your face and put it on a product or put it in something without your permission.
Right.
So that opens up a whole new can of worms for the lawyers and the legislators to battle.
which was another question. How are they gonna monitor all these infringements of copyrights?
Well, I mean, you think about with the internet, people are everywhere and things everywhere. So the age of total privacy and total integrity when it comes to ownership is blurred.
Right.
And like I said, that's for the lawyers and the legislature
to fill out.
to fight all.
fill
I mean,
out.
like how people
Yeah.
fight over any kind of advancement in the civilization.
Yeah. So I mean, that's gonna obviously. So what would you say to a young person now or to a parent for that matter, who see your child having some skill sets
Right.
that maybe can be developed? What would you say to that young person and developing that artwork? And what would you say to the parents?
I would tell them to encourage their child. I would tell them not to be fearful. I would tell them to have a kind word. I would tell that parent that it'll keep their kid out of a lot of trouble.
Wow. How so?
Because, you're not going to be on a street corner doing art.
Right.
Unless you're doing graffiti art.
Right.
Odds are that child's in your home. They're in a place where you can monitor them. They're doing something that's creative. Like my son likes video games. And he'll show me something he designed on his game, and he can buy these skins and all this stuff. I said, son, I used to take notebook paper and colored pencils, and we drew things, and we made physical things, and so that's all changed because of technology. But the reality is, you're going to be in some place, focused in and creating your vision or telling your story. I mean, making a comic book or making a painting or whatever. So all those things come into play.
Right. So tell us. I know I've been reading about some of the stuff that you're doing now. Mm-hmm. Tell us some. One of the things I read about was something that you're doing at Pulling Park.
Yeah, I'm part of an exhibition of African American artists at the Pulling Park Art Center. I have it's about 7 of my non-objective abstract paintings. They kind of look like almost like sunsets, landscape kind of thing. Really, it's called my Month and Year series. That's there, and then I'm part of another exhibition at the Garner Performing Arts Center.
Okay.
It's another exhibition focused on African American art. A lot of great talents in that show. And then I'm in another show with the Raleigh Art. I can't remember. My apologies. Raleigh Film and Art.
Okay.
This brother will be a massacring in his business, but my bad. But as a show, it's at Dick's Chapel on Dick's campus, so that's a large exhibition as well. And I'm doing something in Fayetteville. I have a solo exhibition in Fayetteville. 36 works there.
Wow.
In Fayetteville is at Fayetteville Tech Community College.
Right. So do you do a lot of abstract painting, or do you do the painting like the JJ type?
Yeah, that was
painting?
Ernie Barnes' work. Matter of fact, he was from Durham.
Okay.
Yeah, matter of fact, Sugar Shack. He did the famous painting Sugar Shack from Marvin Gaye. But I've run the gambit from painting African American experience, landscape, the nudes. That gets a good conversation going. Nudes, abstract work, the whole thing. I've done comics, murals, photography, some digital art across the board. But currently, I'm painting a lot of African American works in a collage medium, and also periodically doing some abstract art.
Right. So you have an idea of a painting. I mean, how do you get your ideas for a picture I want to paint? You say, you go to your office like, I want to paint something that inspired. I mean, do you have picture in your mind that you take and use to draw that, or you just create it as you go?
All the above.
All the above. Okay.
It just depends on the circumstance. Sometimes I'm have an idea for a series, and I tend to like to work on a theme, and so I was doing jazz musicians. Okay. So for years, for 20 plus years, I just painted lots of jazz musicians. Questions what style I was going to work in, but I was always working on jazz musician. I still do some periodically. Or I may have a really unique idea of how can I approach something, and how can I use materials and methods to create things. So it's always that just responding, and you may see a piece of art and go like, wow, I like how that person used that color. Or I might look at what you're wearing right now, so why that color combination works well, I'm going to work that into a painting. Or I might meet a person and say, I want to paint them. It just flows towards you and through you, and then you create something tangible.
I used to sit on Saturday morning and watch this artist guy on TV,
Bob Ross.
Yes, and how he would take a blank canvas piece of paper, and by the time he finished with it, he's got this amazing looking, he's like, I'm just going to add a little bit of the fence here and then add a little weeds over here.
I think everybody learns that from Bob Ross. Yeah, he's just like the old G, so to speak.
Yeah.
I learned how to paint rocks from looking at Bob Ross. How to paint a really successful rock. That sounds really trivial until you have to paint a rock.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Some artists now, I'm watching Facebook, TikTok, whatever you call it.
Yeah, TikTok, and Instagram.
And you see this guy who creating a painting upside down.
Right.
And when he finished with it, he's painting it. It's like, it's amazing how...
I've done something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I've done that kind of live performance painting.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of everything, friend.
Man, that's
But, it's ways, when I look at that, people do things, I go, okay, he did this, that, and already I'm processing how I'm re-engineering his process. Right. And any great artist is basically observing and absorbing. They're going to see somebody do something. How'd they do that? How'd they apply that technique?
Yeah. So is there a connection between grief? Can be people who are going through a lot of grief, a lot of losses, could art play a major part in healing, if you will, and getting through?
I have one of my students, she is a therapist, like an art therapist. And she uses art in her therapy sessions. I don't do that directly, but in the workshops I teach, a lot of times students come there with their own experience and their own, I don't want to say burden, but basically something they want to say. And for me, my art has worked like that. Matter of fact, I lost my brother many years ago. He was murdered. And strange enough, only thing I painted this painting called a Song for My Brother. And it was this jazz painting. And it was a silhouetted figure that looked almost like my brother a little bit. And he's playing a trumpet or something. So it was Miss American Tobacco Campus, I think, bought it. And but how the figure looked, it was like he was playing a sorrowful song.
Wow.
And that's how I dealt with it at that time. But now I'm working on a piece 20 years later where there's a target on him.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's a very heavy piece. And my son came in my studio and saw it. And he was like, Dad, what's that about? And I told him, I said, it's about your uncle. So anytime he walks in there, he looks at the piece and he just like, he's that's deep, Dad. And he'll just leave.
Yeah. Because there's a story behind.
Yeah, a very weighty story, a life story in that work. And so art has that ability to address the range of the joys and the challenges of living, of life itself. What is your tragedy, your hardship, your burden? What is like when my daughter was born? Man, everything was pink. Jazz musician was pink. The mountains were pink. The water was pink. Everything was pink.
Right.
I said, who's going to want all these pink paintings? I could care less, man. I was just the happiest man in the world.
Yeah.
40-year-old man having my first child. I'm the happiest man in the world. And everything was pink and powder blue and yellow. And I never really used pink much in my work until then, and I was just celebrating my daughter, and people gobble those paintings up.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah.
But on the outside looking in, you wouldn't necessarily know that's the reason why. Back to my brother, whatever. That's reality.
Yeah.
It's my story.
Yeah. So this is, I guess, we're gonna have to wrap up. So is there a story connected to all of your painting, or just certain paintings?
Every painting. The question is how sophisticated,
or how deep it is.
Or how deep it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good morning. Hey, good morning, Glenn. Or like, Glenn, we need to talk.
Right.
There's two different levels of communication.
Yeah.
And some paintings are just like, Merry Christmas. And others like, man, I got to tell you what I'm going through. Right. I need your prayers, you know. Yeah. And so it's a different kind of level of complexity.
Yeah. So, Eric, we're coming to the end of this, and we could talk for on and on. I got another lot of questions to ask you about painting and about artists, but my team is telling me it's time to wrap it up. But tell our audience how they can get your work and how they can contact you and all that good stuff.
If you're interested in seeing some of my work, you can go to my website, ericmcray.com. That's spelled ERICMCRAY.com. That's 1C, ericmcray.com. That's my website. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. But if you go to my Facebook and my Instagram, you can see my works there as well, but primarily my website. And if you want to email me, my email is eric@ericmcray.com. If you're a texting person, my phone numbers are everywhere. So it's 919-614-2174. Shoot me a text. And that's where you can see my work. And I'm in lots of collections and here, there, and everywhere.
Yes. Great, Eric. Thank you so much for coming, man.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a wide open discussion. I love it. It was your art ability has been amazing. And thank you for the opportunity to come and share with our audience the work that you're doing in the community.
Well, I appreciate you having me here.
Yes. And to my audience, thank you for joining us. And I'll say everybody have a safe time, and we'll see you later. Here's 3 ways you can support our Dads at a Distance initiative. Give a copy to a family member, our friend. Donate monthly, a book monthly, 5 books monthly, how many books you want to do monthly donation. Reverse book signing, your church, your business. You can make a donation go to our website at www.afatherforever.com and go to our PayPal at Fathers Forever. Our Cash App is $Fathers Forever. Make your donation today. Please include in the note section, include DAAD. Again, include in the note section DAAD.
If you or someone you know would like to be a part of the show, please visit our website at www.afatherforever.com or call us at 919-779-9905. The Chat and Chew podcast streams Thursdays at 8 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook. To schedule a reverse book signing or to find out more information about how you can become a part of the programs you heard us mention today, please be sure to stop by our website as well.
Hello, everyone. This is Glenn Warren, founder and executive director of Fathers Forever. I want to share an alarming reality with you. 627,000 fathers are incarcerated that have kids under 18. Now, there are 56,000 moms incarcerated who have kids under 18. The reality is there are so many more fathers incarcerated than moms. This is why I Am a Father Forever book exists. Now I need your help. I am inviting you to help us get this book into as many fathers incarcerated as possible. Here's how it works. For your donation of $22, we will provide a book to an incarcerated father. Thank you in advance for helping Fathers Forever heal fathers and save families.